I can attest, it's real.
Alexis too, she saw it.
Call the meeting to order. Board Secretary, roll call, please.
Were you able to hear us there?
They can't hear anything.
Oh,
Still can't hear anything? Yeah.
we're there.
They heard us earlier, I thought.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're in Lancaster.
We thought it was a good idea to do a board meeting in two different places at the same
Well,
time.
no, all the boards here, we have to have both because of two different jurisdictions.
We offered it, yeah.
because we offered it, yeah.
So if somebody shows up over there, the public,
I
they have to
see.
be able to hear.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Barbara in Lancaster. We can't hear anything if you're getting ready to start the meeting.
That's a Harvard business.
All right, how about now?
I'm
Yeah,
sure it
I see it
probably
going
is.
up.
Yes, we can hear you now. Thank you.
Great.
All right.
Okay, we
Thank you.
good?
Yep, yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, we're calling it to order. Roll call, please. That's the
Board Member Hertzberg. Board Member Vasquez.
Couldn't hear you.
Board Member Peacock.
Here,
Board Member Brower.
Present.
Vice Chair Ruggles.
Here, here.
Chair Paris.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. First item of business is appointing Ernesto Medrano to the Board of Directors of First Hydrogen Authority. Any speaker cards? No speaker cards. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second?
So moved. Second.
Let's vote. How do we vote? Is there-
We actually need to do roll call votes
Okay.
because we do have a remote location. So, Madam Secretary, will you please call the roll for the votes?
Certainly. Member Hertzberg.
Aye.
Member Peacock.
Aye.
Member Brower.
Aye.
Vice Chair Ruggles.
Aye.
Chair Paris.
Aye.
So you do that in the
Motion
legislature?
carries.
That passes unanimously.
Never actually said that.
Allison will swear you in now?
Yeah. Would you please rise and raise your right hand and repeat after me? I state your name.
I, Ernesto Medrano,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
and that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
upon which I am about to enter.
upon upon which I am about to enter.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Hey.
Anything to be pulled from the consent calendar?
No, sir.
Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Please call the roll.
Board Member Madrano,
Aye.
Member Hertzberg,
Aye.
Member Peacock,
Aye.
Member Brower,
Aye.
Vice Chair Ruggles,
Aye.
Chair Perez.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Moving on-
Unanimously.
Moving on to, I'm sorry, what did you say?
I said it passed unanimously.
Oh, am I supposed to say that or you? Okay.
Somebody should say it.
All right,
We
great.
need to announce the vote.
All right. Can we hear the staff report on MB6 from Barbara Boswell?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good afternoon, Chair Paris, Vice Chair Ruggles, and members of the board. The key administrative function of standing up First Public Hydrogen as a new government entity is acquiring proper insurance coverage. The Special District Risk Management Association, or SDRMA, is a JPA that pools the needs of governmental entities for the purposes of risk management. They've been providing this service for over 30 years. First Public Hydrogen received a quote from SDRMA for its general and auto liability needs. The quote received for fiscal year 24-25 is $17,011.39. This amount will be prorated for the remaining months of the current fiscal year, estimated at $2,835. To bind coverage through SDRMA, the FPH2 board adopts a resolution approving the form of and authorizing the execution of the Sixth Amended Joint Powers Agreement and authorizing participation in the SDRMA Property and Liability Program. Staff recommends the board take that action and authorize the Chief Executive Officer to execute all documents related to the program, subject to General Counsel approval. This concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions from the board.
Any questions?
It says we are including vehicle liability. Do we have vehicles? Are we going to have vehicles?
We don't have any vehicles now, and we don't anticipate having any vehicles.
These coverages would include driving on behalf of First Public in a personal vehicle. So we want to make sure we have folks covered when they're driving on behalf of First Public.
And then this is going to cover our, we have permanent office space now?
You want to take it?
Yeah, we have office space. It's in a city facility, a city of Lancaster facility.
Oh, is it?
So
Don't think there's rent currently.
there's no rent currently, but to the graciousness of the mayor, we were in one of his buildings.
Don't be pitting a gift of public funds on me.
We're a public agency.
Yes,
Okay, great.
Actually, there should be some rent on that.
We're,
that will be happening.
yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any speakers on NB6? Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Member Hertzberg,
Aye.
Member Peacock. Member Brower,
Aye.
Member Madrano,
Aye.
Vice Chair Ruggles,
Aye.
Chair Paris.
Aye. Moving on to
Motion
NB7.
carried.
Passed unanimously.
Oh, that's right.
Announce
I
the vote.
got you.
Yeah.
At least I didn't have to close the public hearing.
That's right, you did not have to close a public hearing,
Which I had
and
forgotten for 14
I've had your
years.
back for over a decade now, sir.
All right. Mr. Cottle.
Yeah, so the next item on the agenda is a conversation about the meeting times. So if you remember, we set the meeting times in a vacuum when we officially formed the agency. Didn't have the opportunity to communicate with all the board members and to identify their schedules. We ran into a problem last board meeting about mixed up schedules. We wanted to recertify and double check with you that we have the opportunity to change the date if you wish. You guys, you are control of the dates in which we have the council meetings or the board meetings. And as a result, we wanted to have that conversation today, and we confirmed with Jack that he's able to make these days well or regularly. But we want to have that conversation with everybody else. Does this day work for everybody? And I want to reiterate, the key is that attendance is important now. As we expand with more territories or more members, we then can have more remote locations, but at this point, it's important that we're all here in person. So that's why we wanted to validate the time and date. It works for everybody.
So just for clarity, as we add jurisdictions to First Public, we will expand the scope of the locations from which we can allow you to participate. Because you have to participate from within the jurisdictional boundaries of the entity. So as we add additional agencies and their boundaries become ours, we add more locations to make it easier for you all to get to the meeting. So right now, we've been having the meetings cited both here in industry and in Lancaster. And then as we add additional members, we'll hope to expand the scope of where you can participate from.
You just have to have a quorum within one of just,
We have to have a quorum present from within the jurisdictional boundaries.
okay.
These are the old Brown Act rules, pre-pandemic. If we put those addresses on the agenda, so for example, City Hall or the two city halls is what we've been doing. As long as we participate from those locations, we just need a quorum in the boundaries. So
Okay.
if, for example, the mayor had needed to be in Lancaster today, he could have participated from Lancaster City Hall, and we still would have had a quorum.
Okay.
But I couldn't participate from the room.
No,
You could add Laguna.
yet, not yet.
My understanding is, it's not picking me up yet. Okay, my understanding was that if you had a quorum, other board members can participate remotely. Is that correct?
Okay, so it's a little bit more complicated than
Okay.
that.
They
can't vote.
Okay, so if a board member wants to participate remotely from outside the jurisdiction, and we know in advance, and the location from which you're going to participate is stated on the agenda, posted in accordance with the Brown Act, and open to the public,
Right.
and arguably ADA compliant,
I take
then
yours
yes,
with-
you can participate remotely with us just having a quorum within the jurisdiction. If there is an emergency, a sickness, a child care or elder care issue, whatever, and you need to participate remotely as a surprise, and we haven't noticed location, then we need a quorum present in one location within the jurisdictional boundaries, which makes that very hard.
Yeah, it makes it difficult.
Yes.
Yes.
So the
Okay.
answer to that question is not simple.
Yes.
And I've been helping staff through that many-pronged process as we're trying to keep us on the up and up.
But thank you for that clarification, because it makes it very important for us to commit to being where we say we're gonna be.
Correct.
Yeah, thank you.
And then there's a time at our last board meeting, Bob couldn't attend, but he was at the state capitol. So he worked with us and we worked with the staffing at the state capitol to allow a public venue at the capitol for him to participate
Yeah.
remotely last time.
Okay.
So it's an issue of communication and make sure we understand, and then we can make that happen for you. And as we grow, as you get the city of Irvine and North County, or Orange
Yeah.
County Transit to join, and
Yeah.
now you can do it from your offices likely, right?
All right, thank you.
Glendale, Burbank.
Yes, yeah.
I need those for her, I need Irvine for me.
Right.
And the notice has to be posted at the location for 24 hours or 72?
If it's for regular, it's 72. It's a special meeting, then 24. Just like the regular public meeting.
So with the nod of the head, if everybody's okay with this date, we'll continue with it. And we appreciate the conversation. As things change, we may have different schedules happen.
I think maybe the only thing, I don't know, I'm 100% anytime, but I would say if the traffic coming this way really gets bad now around 3 o'clock. So I mean, if we move it a little bit earlier, those heading from the LA area, it probably would be a little bit less.
Maybe 2 o'clock?
That's kind of up to the rest of the board.
Is that better for you guys, you think?
It works for me too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's try to move it an hour or an hour and a half earlier. See if it helps everybody with traffic.
Yeah, that would be.
And then obviously going home, it's no big deal.
Right.
Going opposite.
Okay, great.
So if that's the pleasure of the board, it would be appropriate for someone to move to give direction to staff to change the regular meeting schedule to 2 o'clock. We will need to come back with a resolution to do that. And we'll do that at the next meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Need to call the roll on that?
We do.
You do.
Okay, call the roll, please.
Member Vasquez? Member Peacock?
Aye.
Member Brower?
Aye.
Member Madrano?
Aye.
Member Hertzberg?
Aye.
Vice Chair Ruggles?
Aye.
Chair Paris?
Aye. Passes unanimously. Moving on to new business item 7.
8.
8. Just did so. Sorry. Yeah. Barbara Boswell will give the staff report.
Thank you, Chair Paris. In preparing a financial projection for FPH2 that identifies costs over the next 3 years, a need of an approximate $10 million in financing has been identified. Staff sought proposals from 3 separate financial institutions for a revolving line of credit to cover that need. We received term sheets from JP Morgan, River City Bank, and SunWest Bank. Staff reviewed the term sheets offered by the 3 institutions and determined that the term sheet from River City Bank provided the package that best met the needs of FPH2. River City Bank is a supporter of clean energy, a key partner to meet the financing and banking needs of community choice aggregation agencies since they began serving customers throughout California in 2015. Should the board accept the proposed revolving line of credit term sheet, staff will return to the board at its May 15th board meeting for the approval of the credit agreement documents. I'm happy to answer any questions you or the board members may have. Thank you very much.
Any questions?
Yeah,
Any comments?
can you give us some of the financial terms of that deal? I mean, how does it work? It's River City, I know those guys, but what's the deal? And is it a floating interest rate? How does it work? And is there a guarantee on that? It must be a guarantee, right? How do you get $10 million?
Yes. Yes, it does require a 105% collateralization that is anticipated. The city of Lancaster will provide that deposit into an interest-bearing account to cover the collateral requirements. It's a 3-year revolving line of credit. We only pay interest on the amounts that we use, and the interest is based on the 1-month T-bill plus 1%.
That was competitive with respect to
get
the
out
other
of this.
institutions? Huh?
There's only one of us.
What's that?
There's only one of us. You wanted us to kick in more money.
But is there a provision in the documents that allow for release of some of that security by the city of Lancaster as we get revenue? I guess, I mean, to the extent that if you've got this revenue stream and you want to keep this for other purposes, you want to keep this line of credit, right? You should have some release mechanism that gives protection to the city. Is there something like that in the documents?
Correct, Barbara, let me jump in. So our anticipation is that as we become revenue positive or visibility to revenue, right? So what's going to happen is this is a short-term credit enhancement.
Bridge.
A bridge, is that as we roll out with our RFP, which we're going to talk about during my report, and then we start signing contracts, that credit's going to roll out of our responsibility to the off-taker, to their credit worthiness. So then we will then rotate Lancaster out and rotate the buyer of hydrogen in as a collaborative members of the agencies who have committed
That's
to buy the
written into
molecule.
the loan documents?
We have an opportunity to get out, and then so we would structure that out as we loaded in opportunities. And then at the end of the day, the city council of Lancaster has the control over that. It's their funds at the end of the day as well.
Yeah, of course.
And if I can also add, those types of terms will come back in the credit agreement that comes back next month.
And you didn't answer the question with regard to T-bill plus 1%. Was that competitive with the other bids?
Yes, it was better than the other 2 bids.
Thank you.
We need to We need to make the deal with Lancaster in stone, so they can't unwind it.
Yes,
And are we doing that?
yes.
Okay, good. I mean, you never know what's going to happen politically, right?
For the board's purposes, you're approving one side of the deal. The city of Lancaster, through their budget process, will be approving the other side.
Okay.
It's a 3-year, just for everybody's edification, the burn rate's about $3 million a year. So we anticipate having some, as we talk about in my report, it's either going to be a rapid success, and we're going to know it really quickly, or it's going to string out. And I don't think it's going to string out, but the goal is we have this window of opportunity to make these contracts happen and this pricing happen, and we're going to know it right away. So we're not going to take 3 years to figure this out, I guess is the commitment. It is going to be 3 years before I think we start seeing some of those long-term molecules, but our success is determined very quickly, and we're going to see that, we believe, is going to be very quickly.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Board Member Brower,
Aye.
Member Peacock,
Aye.
Member Madrano,
Aye.
Member Hertzberg,
Aye.
Vice Chair Ruggles,
Aye.
Chair Paris.
Aye. Thank you.
Motion carries.
Passes unanimously.
You know what, can I just ask one other question, Mr. Chairman? Sure. Just caught my mind. So if we're going to give them 105% in cash, do we know what the delta is in the spread? Because what's going to happen is that, I mean, that money belongs to the city of Lancaster, right? So Lancaster's going to put the money in the bank, basically. They're going to have a cash deposit. They're going to get some rate of return on that, right? So I guess on their books, they're going to get cash for what they're doing. And I guess that'll be whatever the market rate is, whether they can negotiate. And I guess we're a different balance sheet, so it doesn't really make any difference, I guess.
Correct.
So we're a separate set of books.
Yes.
And what they're going to charge us.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then the collateral placed by the city of Lancaster will be at a LAIF rate, which is a local agency investment fund, which is a traditional governmental investment, which is about 4.5% at this point. So that will be interest-bearing money that they would have had in their LAIF account is still bearing interest at the same rate.
In B9, Jason.
Great, Mayor, we are excited to announce, or Chairman, excited to announce that we have our first member. I'm going to turn it over to Josh with Industry to talk about Roland Water District as a neighbor of theirs, and I think a unique opportunity to partner together.
So, yeah, good morning, Chair Paris and Vice Chair Ruggles, members of the authority. Roland Water District is one of the water districts that serves the city of Industry. We have actually 5 different water companies that serve the city of Industry. We're one of them, but Roland's one of the other ones. But they also serve areas outside the city too, and so their jurisdictional boundaries go up into Roland Heights, and hence their name as well. But they have a public board. It's a public agency, and I know they were looking into some of the upgrading some of their vehicles and things like that, and looking for sources of hydrogen to power those. And so they looked to us to be part of that team. So, anyways, we had told them about the opportunity, and they jumped right in, I think. So, yep.
Great, thank you. And I think this is an indication as we start reaching out to others, there's going to be some that are moving faster, a little more entrepreneurial, that understand it a little better. But as we look about what we're doing in hydrogen, it's not just a transportation opportunity. This is resilience in moving water, right? If power goes out, this is every city government, every water district, everybody with a fleet has to rotate out that to zero tailpipe emissions. It's not going to be only battery electric. So the opportunity that we're presenting has value for every governmental entity as well as the private sector. So this is a good news story for us and for Roland. With that, we recommend you guys adopt a resolution approving and authorizing Roland Water District to enter the Joint Powers Authority with First Public Hydrogen.
Any speakers? Seeing none.
Question. Is this Joe Byrne who signed as general counsel, Lieutenant Tucker? Do you know? He worked for me. He was my intern for many years, and he worked for me at Mayor Brown for many years. Whenever I got a problem, I want to disclose that if it's the same cat. I think it probably is. He was the president of the Water Commission. I trained him on water. I think this is the guy.
Sounds like it might be, yeah.
I'll check, I'll text him and see if it is. I just wanted, I don't think there's any conflicts at all.
That's
He worked
not a
for me
conflict.
for many, many
That's not a
years. I
legal
just wanted to
conflict, yeah.
disclose that that guy
Yeah.
worked for me.
Always good to disclose, but not likely a conflict.
Yeah.
Okay. Any further discussion? Call the roll. Alden Wayman, I need a motion.
I need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Call the roll, please.
Member Hertzberg,
Aye.
Member Peacock,
Aye.
Member Madrano,
Aye.
Member Bauer,
Aye.
Vice Chair Ruggles,
Aye.
Chair Paris.
Aye. Passes
Motion
unanimously.
carried.
In B10,
Great, Chairman, Board, thank you guys so much. This is a good opportunity for me to give you guys an update on what's been going on over the last few months and what we plan on doing for the next few months. So I hope it's going to be open-ended, conversational, as we talk through some of these issues. This is different than a city council oftentimes, because in cases with the city council, we're in direct contact on a daily basis sometimes, but this is a little different. We're not directly in contact every day, so I think this is providing a good opportunity for us to share with you what we're doing, but also the opportunity for you to get feedback and direction. It's also an opportunity for this board just to let you guys know, we have a powerhouse board, right? I've seen you guys in action. That your roles and responsibilities in this organization are with us as well. There's specifically, you guys are designed to have that influence and that insight and that direction to allow this agency to move forward. So when we engage in these, we're also asking you to perform as well. So this is really cool opportunity for me, but I think it's an opportunity for the mayor as well to be really active board who's engaged in this process. So that's why I see this process is very important in my report with this agency. So for what we've been doing since January, so our first board meeting, basically been doing two things. One is validation and preparation, right? Validation of one thing, right? I've talked to you individually, have identified a problem in the hydrogen space, right? We spent a lot of time validating that problem exists, right? That it truly exists, and validating that our solution is the one that fixes it. And we've been spending time, staff, well, let me take the opportunity to introduce staff. We've got Ashley, Adrian, Paul, and Chris, who've been actively, and Alexis, who's up front with you, actively beating down doors, talking to everybody, right? Including transit agencies, suppliers, other offtakes, basically identifying, does this problem exist, right? And the problem is bridging the gap between supply and demand. We not only hear it from the suppliers that the problem that we've identified exists in a big way, that this industry will not take off unless we solve this problem or somebody solves this problem. And the suppliers or the off-takers are in the same boat, right? They cannot find the molecule at an affordable rate unless we do what we're going to do. So that validation has happened in our opinion as staff, and I think the communications I've had with you guys, that problem exists. We also validated the solution, right? The solution is First Public, a public entity, transparent. You can see it in our board agenda. Every bill, every check we write is completely transparent to the public. So this opportunity, I think, provides a space in the marketplace as a public entity that not only is a best solution, but potentially the only solution in a nascent market where people need to trust what's happening in the industry. So I think we've validated that as well. So now we move into this operational phase or contractual phase. And I think that's where we're at. In the last 3 months, we've been doing all the validation. Now, as we report back, we start getting into the operational phase. We actually start buying and contracting for hydrogen. So with that, as it relates to where we're at now, I'll start with the RFP process. So the first thing we need to do to procure hydrogen is to go out in a competitive marketplace and acquire it. Competitive being, one, federal transportation laws require a competitiveness process. It requires certain rules to be followed in that procurement process. We have complied with all of those in working with multiple transit agencies to look at our RFP, multiple attorneys, including your general counsel, but as well as energy procurement councils and others to make sure that this is a lock-tight RFP process. That will be going out next week. So this is the timing at which we're going to be doing this. It'll be going out next week. It'll be in the ground or out in the world for 2 weeks. It seems like a short period of time, but if we're dealing with real developers and real offtake or real suppliers, a lot of the questions we're asking, they have in the top of their head. Right? They know pricing and everything else. Tanya, go ahead.
Will Arches be sending out the RFP to its members?
Correct, yes. So we have thank you, I had that on my list. We have a
Okay, great.
partnership with Arches. We are engaged contractually with them as a joint marketing effort for what we're calling the H2 Market Starter. So they are key to the success of our effort, and we are key to the success of their effort as well. So we anticipate working together on this RFP and submitting it and asking them to submit it to their vendor list, whatever that may be. we'll be sending it to our list, so it'll hopefully be a collective statewide operation.
I just heard some feedback from some Arches members that they didn't get the RFI, so we wanted to make extra sure that they do get the RFP, and they were quite distraught not to have received the RFI.
Okay, that doesn't exclude them, so that's good news, so they can still be included in the RFP. And we'll also share with you guys as well, so I mean, we'll put a link together, so if you have contacts in the industry, send them their way, double check them, because we really want to see a robust application process. And then we'll be on the market for 2 weeks. We'll do interviews, identification of selected vendors, and then hopefully come to you with a binding contract in June. And that's really short time frame, but this is really good news. So let me kind of explain how that's going to go down. So I think what we're going to see in this RFP, because we've seen it before, is we're going to have ideas presented, and then we're going to have projects presented, right? Those are two different things. First call from our effort is going to be a project. And in a project, that means land use, permitting, financing, design, engineering, that feels like somebody has spent some money to get to a point by which they're ready to construct. There's going to be a lot that aren't. There's going to be a lot that might say, I got a great idea. This is what I think it's going to cost for hydrogen. Well, some of those are going to have to, fall by the wayside. So we're going to select a select group of suppliers that are projects that are ready to get built. We anticipate we'll get short-term supply, right, from guys who have existing production. And we anticipate we're going to get some large-scale green that is ready to produce, right? And that's really where we're kind of fitting in this market, is trying to bridge the gap as a short-term supply, potentially, with existing demand, which helps us kind of lead into the market a little bit. And then we'll have the long-term green, which I think is going to end up being the most affordable and scalable option for us. And then we'll contract with multiple Northern California, hopefully, Southern California supply, large-scale mid-California, different technologies. We've got one of our ethanol providers, ethanol to hydrogen. We're looking at SMR. We're looking at all the different types of processes or all technologies. So we're really going to try to open it up. And at that point, once we have these contracts, we've identified projects, pricing, timeline deliveries. Hey, Aura, how are you? Welcome. Good. You might want to note that Aura showed up.
For the record, the minutes should reflect that Aura Vasquez arrived. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for your patience.
Great. So from that point, we'll have a menu of options we anticipate. And this is, to clarify, this has never been done before. So we believe this might happen, but we'll see how it goes. We anticipate having a menu of options, at which point we're going to go back out to everybody our staff has contacted and worked with to go and have that conversation. And that conversation, go ahead.
I was just going to ask about the evaluation process for determining which of those who reply to the RFP are going to be considered the idea vendors and those that have real projects. How are you going to determine that?
Right. So, well, we'll have a panel. So we'd love to have you guys participate. We haven't reached out yet. But we'd love to take your insight, maybe you, Jack, maybe somebody who's looking at these RFPs before. And can't be a quorum. One is looking at, from our standpoint, from a land use perspective, a project means you can construct, and we understand what that means. That's CEQA document, that might be land use approval, that might be, building permit, could be sticks in the ground, could be whatever it looks like, right?
Okay.
And we will know how to determine that, and that's kind of a project. As much as we think projects are important, we also might see a technology that may not have a project that may be regional, or maybe mobile, or may have some other opportunities there that we might include that doesn't have a project, but they might have, I could have a project quickly in this location if you needed it. So we're going to be fluid with it. I don't know that there's any hard and fast rules, but I think with the committee together, we can kind of put our heads together to figure out what's real and what's not real.
And then transitional technologies that have partial fossil, partial not decarbonized or fully decarbonized. All of those are going to be considered, but then you're going to have some spectrum of prices and everything too that might be available.
Correct.
From my perspective, this is a very valuable service to make some of that transparent and to show the value of this transition. Okay.
Absolutely.
And especially, I think, with regard to the visibility to the whole nation too, right? Where you can show that there are these means by which you could make it cost effective.
Yeah. And I think what's revolutionary, what you guys are doing, is not every bid will be public. We want to protect people who don't
Yeah.
get selected.
Yes,
But the ones who do get selected, we're going absolutely public with this number.
yeah,
There is not going to be anybody that does not have access to what this price is. And we've heard it in the marketplace. The problem that we talk about is that these $30, everybody says, well, that's how expensive it is. We don't believe so. We believe we're going to find something much less than that. And that those who are charging $30 are going to be visible to what's the real true cost is. So I think that's going
What
to
the
be,
spread is going to be, what our delta is to be able to make our number. We have some general sense of what that looks like. Obviously, you buy low, you sell high, but we want to, chum the market, so to speak. But just any sense of, given your history on this, what you think that
yeah,
looks
so
like?
we're looking at, some of the indicative pricing we received from the RFI is going to be sub $7 liquid. It sounded, when I said this the other day on a call, it sounded like such a nerd. Sub $7 liquid pre-LCFS credit. So that, so the LCFS is the downstream dispensing value, which is about $2. So we believe we're going to get a liquid product at $5 at a gate, right? We don't know which gate. We'll figure this out, but that's what we believe we're going to get. Anything sub $9 is diesel competitive, and somebody clarify me if I'm wrong, right?
yeah, certainly, the metro, districts that are, gonna buy buses, can make the total cost of ownership work at $9. Right. But if it's above that, they can't.
Right.
Okay,
So our goal is sub 9.
yeah.
Right, delivered. And with all those in perspective, that's kind of where we think the market will head.
And we really should avoid getting any further into pricing in
Right.
these
No, no, no,
discussions
it's always-
because
yeah,
we
of
do
course.
have an RFP coming. Having a statement of our goals is fine, but anything about any particular pricing or scope of our negotiations gets into anti-competitive issues, and we want to make sure we don't do that, which is why you see me sitting up and pointing my face at Jason.
Fair enough. And as it relates to margin and what it takes for our operation, again, we are a public utility. So we will, look at our budgets and our demands and resources and identify those as it relates to the scale of molecules we're selling. So we don't anticipate our operation sending any of these markets out of whack or out of competitiveness.
Is there enough supply if we get a lot of contracts coming in?
So here's where I think it's going to go, and you guys are in the industry too to let me know. Everybody's waiting. Nobody's going to go buy a new truck or a new forklift or a new bus if they're paying $20 for a kilogram of gas. Not going to happen, right? They're going to be sitting, waiting, holding on, saying, "I'll let somebody else be the test case." When we come in and have a price that is transparent, public, reliable, there's going to be freeing up a whole lot of demand. It's going to start moving to the market, we believe. So it's those guys sitting on the sidelines of the ports who are saying, "I don't want to put my operators at a $20 a kilogram gas that they may not get. They may pay $20, but they may not get it next week." So I think once we come out with a publicly available market, then the demand's going to increase, and then that's going to meet the supply. I think the supply that's going to bid to our RFP is going to be far greater than the demand currently. If that makes sense. But this is a 2-year outlook from some of the new construction of the projects.
Talk to us about Arches.
So Arches is, fine. So the DOE right now is obviously from a federal perspective. One of the questions is going to ask is, are we impacted by the federal government, by Trump administration taking away Arches money? We are not funded by Arches at all. We are not funded by the feds at all. We are not funded by any state grant. We are literally, as a local entity, our own independent office. So we have no impact in that funding. Arches is hugely valuable to what we are doing and what the industry is doing. Because they come in as a state agency, quasi-state agency, and hopefully not only merge this marketplace to an eventual, huge marketplace, but then also fund demand, right? So the state Department of Transportation, the regulations that are driving the market, the clean fleets rules, some of these others, those still have to stay in effect for this market to work. And I think what happens is once we have that available molecule, now we've got a demand that the state's going to actually have to supply.
But wasn't Arches actually funding the equipment, like at the ports, things of that nature?
Yes.
That was going to use the hydrogen?
Yes, but
And if the feds aren't funding Arches,
well, I think the state is going to prop that up. I don't know that.
I have a question or a comment, but I'll let Tanya go first. I saw that she had her hand.
Thank you.
raised.
I'm just going back to the RFP quickly. Are we looking only for liquid supplies or gaseous as well?
No, both.
Both,
Yeah.
okay.
So we're opening up to both, and I think there's going to be demand for both. There's a lot of what we've talked to, the small agencies that are doing pilot projects that don't want to go spend $6-7 million on a liquid. They're going to be looking at cascade fueling, things like that.
Right, right.
So gas is going to be a component of what we do.
Good, I misheard. I thought
Yeah.
you said.
Well, I didn't
liquid,
say
so-
that. You didn't misheard.
Okay.
On the question about supply, demand and supply, I'm interested in learning how are we accounting our part in terms of hydrogen and supply as it relates to the state. So traditionally, cities have, integrated resource plans. They have something that kind of shows you the pie and where each piece goes in terms of electrical generation, or in this case, it's a little different because we're in a whole other different new world. I'm interested in learning how our piece of the pie is connected and is integrated to the rest, to the state and potentially, eventually to the country.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we have gone there, but I think it's important, this piece will be important to know, because as we understand how other places have demand, it's gonna also hopefully increase our demand.
Yeah, so it is, we've looked at all the studies and analysis that Arches have done. So they've done an amazing job of doing the analysis, some of the stuff Jack even referred us to as relates to that demand identification, right? But again, that's in a free market system. So that while, as much as I said, we're going to develop 1,000 buses and 1,000 trucks in the marketplace, that hasn't happened yet, right? And it's not going to happen until you have an affordable molecule. So we've got this chicken or egg in identifying that. So what we're doing is kind of like throwing it out in the marketplace and seeing what happens. I mean, wish we had a perfect model to say, this amount of molecules going to be made up in Sacramento, and it's going to feed this demand in Sacramento, and this one's going to fit here, but the model doesn't work that way. We're really going to reach out and try this. I think we have a good understanding of what the demand is going to be, but we've got to figure that out. I think there's going to be, sorry, go ahead, Jack.
Well, I was just going to make a comment that the Arches funding at this moment, which is going to several universities, Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, and others, to evaluate the ecosystem that had proposed originally with Arches, those who are leaving it, those who are coming in, and all this kind of stuff. So there will be some kind of Arches developed plan that has both supply and demand integrated, and First Public Hydrogen fits into that. But it's not done yet.
Right.
Yeah.
And the reason for speed in our case is that a lot of these developments started, the ones that we're talking about being real projects, they started 2 or 3 years ago. The carrying capacity of those guys, a lot of times, is these guys are spending money every month to keep these things afloat. Something's got to give. We can't, this can't wait 2 or 3 years. It's got to move now to keep some of these guys alive that are ready to build. So I mean, that's part of the market starter concept that we worked with Arches, is this idea that we got to get this thing started. Right? Eventually, it's going to grow, and eventually, you might have a SAC RT who has 1,000 buses. They can go buy their own product, right? And there's going to be some of these things happening as we grow the market, but it's got to get started. And we are the most nimble. We are the quickest moving. We're the less regulated. That gives us that opportunity to move that market. So that's kind of where we're going with the RFP. And yeah, I don't have the answer to every question, but we're going to find out. And then the other side of that is transportation. And which is the challenge, because we've been moving through. There's a contract for your guys' approval today on a business consultant we've been working with, because every month is a new business we've been dealing with, right? This month, the previous month, we were validating and preparing.
Right.
This and marketing. This month we're a procurement operation, right? Next month we're going to be a delivery operation, right? We have these movements in what we're doing as a startup that we have to be aware of and change and move to that. The work we're doing as a staff has been fantastic. Being patient is that every day feels like we're doing a new business, right? It's a different story we're telling. It's a different model we're doing. So we do every month as staff. We do kind of a sit down and kind of a visioning for that month of what we see in the future, what we see coming on. And after we get the RFP back, we're a marketing agency. We are selling molecules. That's a different model than we were yesterday or that we are today. So it's going to be, it's an interesting process we're going
You
through.
know, it might be interesting, Mr. Chairman, if, thinking about you, Jack, in terms of the university side, I mean, I just love the entrepreneurial nature of this. Government doesn't do this. Government doesn't get ahead of it. Government doesn't make markets. It's extraordinary. You have to reinvent yourself on all this stuff. I'd love to see somebody, we'd reach out to some of these universities around who can kind of track what we're doing and write the story. Now, maybe it's a story of us falling flat on our face, or it's a story of an elegance of really doing something in a different way. You know, one of the challenges that we're facing in our time in history now of this country is government is not working very well, and people are always sticking a finger in your eye and saying, you're screwing this up and you're screwing that up. This could be a wonderful example of government doing something really right and creative in a way that no one's ever thought before, because we're never leading, we're always following, we're always listening to somebody else, we're always too concerned about taking direction and taking choices, and all of a sudden you've got municipal jurisdictions coming together, you've got you guys putting this thing together, and this could be just extraordinary and an example for others. So I don't know, in terms of reaching out to some of these institutions, I mean, I don't know if it's the UC system or whatever, but to see if they can track us and watch us, that could kind of tell the story as it comes together, because it could really be a fun story that then could be instructive to other jurisdictions to do the same thing.
Well, certainly, I wouldn't be the kind of scientist who would do that, but
No,
there
no,
might
no,
be,
but
there might be
university.
people at
yeah,
UC
yeah.
Irvine or UCLA or Berkeley or other places that would be very interested in this.
Or the LA Times.
They don't do
But,
that
no,
now.
I think we want a scientist, right? A social scientist,
Right.
yeah, to be
Yeah,
looking at
social
this.
scientist.
Yeah, yeah.
Or somebody that, you
Not
know,
necessarily Sammy Roth
public
or.
policy school or something, looks about this, you know. I really think it's worth a shot.
Yeah.
You know, Toyota, when they came out with the Mirai, yeah. You know, they ran into the obstacle, there wasn't any distribution of hydrogen.
Yeah.
You know, they kind of put it in front of the cart before the horse. Seems to me we might be doing the reverse of that. You know, now we're making the hydrogen available, but we're really not paying attention to who's going to use it. And Lancaster, and somebody came to us with this idea, we'd say, where are the fuel cells? You know, how do we do it? How do we let that develop organically as we get the supply of hydrogen down? Or we could start dealing with it now and get a piece of the action. Is that the way to say it?
Probably not, but
A revenue
Not as
sharing agreement.
individuals.
I mean, if coming to the city of industry saying, look, we can start converting everything over to hydrogen and it's going to save half your electric bill, and, you know, you're going to say, yeah, but, you know, where we're going to buy the fuel cells, how long is it going to take, but, you know, all the obstacles. But if we came in with a package, we can do it all, you know, here it is. And I think that we should be building that now, not later, because later is going to be too late.
And we've, just to clarify, you're absolutely right, and I've taken that direction, and we've taken that direction, is that one is first and foremost is an available, affordable molecule, right? And that transit industry, the technology is valid and validated and verified up and down multiple times. The side note is once we get that molecule available, now it's the stationary power side where municipal utilities come in a bigger way, right? Now we can power all these buildings we see on these maps, power new neighborhoods, power with stationary fuel, because the fuel's available. Right now, we can't even do the calculation because we don't know the fuel price and the availability. So we've actually beginning the engagement with Stanford on their business department to actually validate the business case for that. Once we have a price of a molecule, now we can validate the true stream and the value of that value stream from a stationary power perspective, which we have on our business plan and that you have in front of you and everything else. So we are going to get there. But it starts with the price of a molecule. Yeah.
We're going to need deals with Toyota, we're going to need
Absolutely.
deals with all of these, so that we'll provide your customer, but we, I mean,
Something like, could I have one more, Mr. Chairman, one more thought on this? Again, not something we need to deal with today, but I think it's important as we kind of, as this entity gets off the ground, and you've got people here and we're signing contracts with for messaging and marketing and all those things. I think that, I've spent my life working in this space, all around the planet. But I think the whole green stuff is a mistake in the sense that, not that we shouldn't be green, but that the branding of it is bad. Because the issue is, you want to, I'll never forget it. Just give me a second to explain this, because it's like, I remember when Schwarzenegger went and he was governor, and, he took this Central Valley farmer's truck and crushed it on the steps of the Capitol and gave him a Prius. 2 weeks later, they turned in their Prius and got back a truck, right? I remember when Kaufman and Broad, I think, came to Lancaster, it might have been at Palmdale, and they did greenhouses, and everybody walks in and they said, where's my granite countertops? The notion is that don't sell the climate change or the green stuff. You don't have to sell that. What we have here, and the reason I'm interested in this space, is because it is smart. It's going to be cheaper. It's going to be safer. It is so intelligent at so many levels. We just saw in the fires how bad batteries are. I fought against batteries when I was doing business in Europe. We have such a brilliant approach in terms of a cost reduction, glide path, in terms of safety, availability, and the idea that we're going to provide things to folks that they can understand. This whole kind of, and I know we like to talk about all this stuff and the like, but I think the messaging becomes really important to make this accessible to everyday folks, and how this is better for your life, how this is going to be cheaper. When you look at the trajectory of what energy costs are going to be and the increased energy consumptions occurring that we now have in society we didn't have, there's a lot of, I think, really available architecture, messaging architecture around this stuff that could be really brilliant. And it's the reason why I like hydrogen so much, because I think it's really the beginning. When I was started in solar in '84, and it was $1,000 a watt or something like that, everybody says you're crazy. They're saying the same thing to us now, but they're wrong. This is really smart at 100 levels. And I just want to marry that with a really thoughtful messaging about who we are. I like the idea of first public. That has its own cool. The hydrogen is not a word. We think about the Hindenburg or about, the H-bomb or whatever, but that is whatever. So I just share that with you now as we begin to get off the ground and stuff, of how to really try to not just be a leader in terms of being entrepreneurs, but being a leader in restructuring the messaging in a much more accessible way to folks, rather than, I remember used to say climate change in the Central Valley is when you're in the middle of the summer and your air conditioning doesn't work in your car, right? Think about stuff that helps average everyday folks, because that's what we do. But we have a messaging problem because we're called the H-bomb, right? Or the Hindenburg. So again, nothing that we need any solutions for. I just wanted to touch that nerve, because I think it's a really big play. And I think we're on the cutting edge of something. That's the reason I'm here.
I agree. I don't think climate change should ever come out of our mouth, certainly not with this administration.
Yeah, I think this is a free market solution. It's a better option than fossil fuels. It's not anything green. It's not subsidized. It's just a better option.
Cheaper. Yeah. And it frees up electrons for AI.
So
You can't rebuild the grid.
So I've always said that hydrogen is one of those energy technologies that should be bipartisan. I do agree that we shouldn't try to sell this using climate change as the motivation. That ends up being, which is quite unfortunate from my perspective, ends up being a controversial topic that almost half of the country says we don't want to support it. So why would we do something like that? And from my perspective, the only way you change the world is if you have something that people want, and that they're willing to invest in, willing to purchase, willing to do, because it's the best thing that's out there. It's the best thing that's out there. Okay, and I know hydrogen has some applications in which it is the best. And we're talking about some of those, right? So we're talking about the total cost of ownership for bus fleets. And when I look at the future of hydrogen, it's cheaper than the alternative, okay? And if it ends up being cheaper than the alternative and also zero emissions, it's a beautiful solution, beautiful solution. So I do think that we should talk about zero emissions, not necessarily climate, but air quality emissions.
Yep.
These are definitely bipartisan.
Pollution.
Yeah, pollution is bipartisan, and that's actually where people are the most impacted too. Okay, the climate is
Absolutely.
changing, okay? From my perspective, there's no doubt, scientific doubt that it is changing. But people don't experience that every day. But when they're driving on the freeways here, in City of Industry, as a matter of fact, and they see pollution, that is impacting them. And some people, like my postdoc today, he had to go back home from an asthma attack, okay?
I was thinking, you're protecting your children who have.
Yeah. These kinds of things still are, I think,
Relevant.
universally appreciated for what we are doing. Yeah.
I would like to add a few things. I think it's important to think about who our audience is. If this is the type of utility that is going to be off the market, and this is who we are, or if this is the type of utility that is going to fight the climate crisis. I'm not hearing that so much. But what I think is important for us to remember is the duty that we have to the world, because I can look at all of you in your eyes and see that you're not just here for some financial gain, but also because you truly believe that this technology can help us cross the river. Because right now the river is very broad. Solar was up there. We took that branch, took us to some spot, but it didn't take us to the whole way. And we need to get to the other way because we have children. I don't, but some do. We have, no, maybe. But we have families, we have a world that we love and that we want to enjoy. And this is part of that equation. And I think it's important for us to remember that maybe we're not going to be blue, green, yellow, orange, but this is important as part of that branch that we're holding on that is crossing us to the other bridge. So do not only hold on to one branch. Be open, especially in the messaging, because remember, it's not just us in our little niche, in our little world. We're eventually going to deal with elected officials. We're eventually going to deal with environmentalists. We're eventually going to deal with the market that is going to want to know that as part of our ethos is to also be better to the world. And maybe I will leave the marketing folks deal with this better, messaging wise. But I hope that we all here understand that this is one piece to the puzzle. It's not just solving the whole puzzle.
I think, I've met you in the climate speeches, right? So I have familiarity with those folks. And there's a level of sophistication that they have. As soon as you say hydrogen, water is the only byproduct, they put it together. They understand it, they get it. Every time I think we say it, that this is about climate extinction, right? We stop listening. That's why I just don't think it should be part of our monologue. This is about saving money. I mean, we've got people now who cannot turn their air conditioners on in 120-degree heat. People dying because they cannot afford their electric bill. Persuasive in, we can cut the bill in half.
Lowering pollution, lowering greenhouse gases, which I think people are very familiar because this affects them immediately. Like we have one of the most complicated, polluted ports in the nation that needs this. I have my own ideas. I think everybody's clear here with that. I have my own ideas. However, I'm very clear that if I want to lower pollution in some places where there are communities that fundamentally need to breathe better air, we need this branch.
Yeah. And if we make it the lowest cost option, that's when it is widely adopted.
Right.
Widely adopted. And that's what we want.
And it's only H that blows up, not H2.
Okay, no, it depends what you're talking about, Mayor. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
In the room.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I don't want to go down that path at this moment.
Well, how about this?
Yes.
This is safe, it's H2.
Yeah, so, okay, so definitely it's not related to the nuclear bomb that involves hydrogen, okay? And that, of course, involves nuclear reactions. It's also, it is an energy carrier that is different than the energy carriers that we carry around today, and the features make it more safe in certain circumstances and less safe in other circumstances. So we have to design our systems that monitor the leakage, that monitor risk scenarios in a different way than we have with other fuels. But I am confident that with engineering design, we can make it safer than even our current infrastructure fuels. Okay, and there's a whole bunch of reasons why I can say that, but it's different, right? No, we have extra risk associated with the liquefaction, the fact that it's so cold. We have extra risk associated with the fact that it vaporizes when it gets out of the storage facilities. We have increased leak under certain circumstances, same leak under other circumstances. Okay, and then we have ignition energy that's different. Okay, so I'm sorry, I'm not going to go into all the details here.
Thank you, Professor.
Okay, you're welcome.
Great, so we hope to be back to
Sorry
you.
about
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
taking you down the road here.
What
Okay.
it comes down to is we shouldn't store it in balloons.
Okay, yeah. I'll agree with you on that one, yes.
So we hope to be back to you guys June with contracts, ready, binding contracts.
Yeah.
And when I say binding contracts, what this means is we're going to have partnerships with developers to actually have us a price. That will not be a take or pay contract with those individuals. We then have a responsibility on the marketing end to then say, we've got a system, we've got an amazing board, we've got a process, we've got contracts, we've got legally binding contracts and through a legally enforceable procurement process. Now it's all of our responsibilities to get on that phone, start talking to DWP, start talking to your labor contacts, start talking to your cities, start talking to your clients and say, it's time to sign up. And I think that's when we get to that point in early June, when we have that pricing, we have everything ready to go. And so we hope to have that to you guys in June. That's our goal that we've set. Obviously, this is the first time we've done this, so we're gonna make sure we do it right, because there's only one chance to do it right. And a couple other things, just from a staffing perspective, I want to share. We also have ambitions to go outside of California and interest to go outside of California. So we have Chris Wilson that's just joined the team. He's there, who's going to be working in Hawaii and specifically with the trucking industry as well, which we haven't really engaged with in a deeper level yet. We've been focused on the public side, but the trucking industry is a huge opportunity as well. So Chris is going to be working with us directly with the Hawaiian trucking industry. And then we'll be announcing next week a COO. Rex and I met with that individual. So we'll be announcing who that's going to be next week. And that'll come out. We're keeping it silent at this point until everything's approved. But we're excited about where we're going next. We are leaning in hard. We've got a short window, and so we are going to be racing as fast as we can to get these contracts sold. The sooner we get contracts, the sooner we get labor hired, the sooner we get air quality done, the sooner we get revenue coming to the city, the sooner we get everything that we talk about as it relates to what we want to accomplish as an agency. So we're going to be running hard. Your team's going to be running hard, and we're excited to be part of it. And thank you guys. It is when we talk to the team, we're doing something that's never been done. We're going to look back someday, and we've done it. Rex and I've done it before with CCA, where we look back now at a CCA conference and there's 1,000 people there when there was 3 people around the table when we started.
Yeah.
I really truly have a sense that this is going to be the same thing, and we're excited about it, and we're at the front end of it.
What do you think your timeline is we'll deliver our first molecule?
Well, I think there's going to be some short-term molecules that are available immediately from some of the big suppliers that want to be part. And I think there's going to be probably 2 or 3 years out, 2 years before a molecule hits, a green molecule at scale hits the world. Yeah, 2 years.
When do we buy our first tanker ship?
2 years. Well, it'll
The ship.
Ships, not
Oh,
a
yeah.
when we have the contracts, we'll design it. But just knowing what the marketplace looks like, it'll be
Isn't that funny?
2 years, two and a half years.
It's
It's definitely physically possible. We've been studying ships for a long time, and you can go anywhere around the world with hydrogen.
Navigation.
Yeah, yep. So it's
Well, if we're gonna be
possible
shipping to
physically.
Hawaii,
Yeah,
we're gonna need a ship.
yeah, we need ship to Hawaii. Yeah, we need ship to Hawaii.
Have they built a
Plane.
sustainable ship that can suck up the water and use solar on the ship and propel itself?
Okay, no, that's not physically possible.
No.
That's not physically possible. You cannot put enough solar on the ship to get even close to the amount of power you need. Okay, that's not physically possible. However, you could add sails to the ship, okay, that in addition to the hydrogen could help with the propulsion.
You know, just.
That's an interesting one.
And
that's
and a
renewable,
hydrogen
direct
motor?
renewable, well, of course, the hydrogen motor, yeah.
I attended a hydrogen conference last month in London where they now have offshore rigs with turbines that then suck the water out of the ocean,
Yeah.
desal it.
Yes.
And then put it in electrolyzer
Yeah.
and then make hydrogen and bring it in. They're offshore rigs.
Yeah, that's
It's
possible.
really extraordinary.
Yeah.
Cost effective.
I didn't look at that part of the business model, although I talked to you guys about maybe investing in the deal. But it's unbelievable. Think about that. You got free water, you got free energy from the wind, you desal it. It's a pretty cool idea.
Yeah, yeah, we've
like
looked at this too. This is a very interesting thing.
Yeah,
Can
perpetual
I
motion,
ask
it is.
that you begin this marketing pitch development? Because you've heard a lot of really wonderful comments, diversity of comments here, and I think we have to have that messaging right.
Yeah.
I want everyone in the world to say, I want a piece of that.
Also,
Right.
Yeah.
And I think this whole board wants to be involved with the
Yeah,
messaging.
yeah.
So next Wednesday. You got that?
I think so.
Yeah, Wednesday we'll be meeting with our business consultant and
Yeah.
all the team will be sitting down.
Okay.
Identifying this next phase, which is a marketing strategy.
Yeah.
We've identified some of it, we haven't identified all of it, but you guys are gonna be absolutely included in that process. Because there is a VIP component to this agency that you guys serve, and that is, there's a certain credibility, there's a certain access, there's a certain, that we don't possess as staff, to be completely honest, and that you guys have from that perspective, that we need to engage you in that marketing process to get to that point. So you are going to be active participants in that. And so at our next board meeting, we hope to present that strategy and marketing plan to you so that we'll be ready come June, once we have a price, to launch. And we will be launching that together.
I want to mention one additional thing, if you don't mind, and that is about permitting. Because people around the whole country are very stressed about permitting at this moment. And yet I think that as First Public Hydrogen, and in particular our association with the cities, okay, who are the authorities having jurisdiction for doing some of these things, and the success that you had, especially with solar in Lancaster, this has got to be part of the story. We got to say, hey, there's a way in which you can overcome multiple hurdles. It's not just cost, okay? It's the hurdle also of getting stuff in the ground, right? Doing real molecules, okay?
And then one more thing too. For the next board meeting, will you talk a little bit more about transportation, land transportation? So with the RFPs going out, lineup supply, how's it gonna get to the users? And there's probably a transition on that with some of the
Yep.
near-term supplies that producers will continue delivering as they have been,
There
right?
definitely is, and that's when I talk about our transition as a startup.
Yeah.
We're transitioning to a marketing agency, and then once we do that, now we're going to transition into an operational delivery agency. Not only transportation, I think we'll get into that, but then it's also project delivery. So we contract with a developer who says he's going to provide us a molecule in year 2 or whatever it is, whatever date we have a contract for. It's not going to be, we'll see in a couple years. No, we're going to be, we want to know your electrolyzer. We want to know who he is. We want to go visit the plant. We want to see your invoices. I mean, it is going to be a deep dive into everything they're doing to assure that our off-takers are going to get a product that they were guaranteed. It's not going to be, we'll see in a couple years. And the transportation's part of that we have responsibility for, but it's also production that we have responsibility for. And so it's going to be we'll have time for some of the new construction though. So that's going to be, that's heartening at least.
I attended a conference a couple of weeks ago. It's the Abundance 360. Peter, does Diamante's do it? They ran into a company that what they're using AI for is they go through all the regulations for whatever project you want.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
And they hand it to you. This is the checklist you have. You want to talk to them because that simplifies the process.
Yeah.
So 'cause really the problem with permitting is it's just so complex.
Yeah.
You know, When you build it in Lancaster, though, the question is, how long do you want it to take? We've had a couple other cities with that.
Industry's pretty damn good too.
Yeah, see, this is,
We're the best.
yeah, this is part of, okay, this is part of the reason I joined the board, is because of your previous success in this kind of thing. And I think that's gotta be part of the marketing, so, yeah,
That's a good point of view. I mean, I like that.
yeah.
We did the solar because it was cheaper. I mean, that's why it took off.
No, but it
That's why
wouldn't have been
it's gone
cheaper
off.
unless you also were able to permit it, to set the zoning up and to do all this. You guys did stuff to
Well, yeah,
make it
wasn't-
cheaper.
What's a 2-year accelerator?
Yes.
If you build it in LA County, it took you 2 years longer.
Yeah,
To erect a deal.
yeah, see, but this is the kind of thing, yeah.
Okay, that's all I had for my report.
Excellent.
Thank you. All right. No speakers? Any board member have any questions, comments? Are there any requests for future agenda items? The next regular meeting is scheduled Thursday, May 15th, 2025 at 2 PM, right?
The next one will still be at 3. We have
It'll
to
still be at 3 because we have to bring a resolution to change it, but we will change it at that one.
May 15th, 3 p.m.
At 3 PM. The meeting is adjourned. Carol, my day is done and I'm coming home. That's